Hey everybody, it's Chris. Welcome back. Today we are going to rebuild the steering cylinders for that Clark front axle. I have got a kit, or actually a pair of kits since there's two cylinders, from AGCO. The 157 793 AS has everything you need. And I also got new spherical ball bearing and steering cylinder ends. The ones I've got are SBB12, another part number that's the same as 7SF12. I'll keep an eye on eBay, and usually I can find these pretty cheap. I bought a whole tube of them for, God, they only ended up being a few bucks a piece. Whereas I think through AGCO they're somewhere like 30 or 40 a piece, so your local bearing shop might be able to get you set up. Now fortunately this cylinder on the outer end, the bearing itself is loose, but we're going to replace that, but where it's fit into the end is good, so we just got to drive that out. The other end, the bad news is, must have gotten loose at some point and someone welded it right into the body. It's normally threaded in with a stud. The good news is it still appears to be tight enough to, I'm gonna have to drive the new spherical bearing in, so we don't need to change this end, and we don't need to change this end. We go to the other cylinder, no welding. Oh, I did some initial cleanup on this. The inner bearing ain't terrible. Fitting pretty decent. Let's see how, yeah. I think that's gonna fit good enough. I do have new ones of these. The other end, not so good looking. As you can see, it got wallered out pretty bad. I think the bearing was gone, or like a couple pieces in there. Even looks like someone has tried to weld in there to build it back up. Yeah. As you can see, that little goober weld probably keep this from falling out. Fortunately, I did have some new ones of these and I've used them up, but I have this one that was in good shape that I have around. It's used, but it's tight. I have to look up the tool, the die, but it's an odd duct size, 11/16. I can't remember how many threads per inch, but it took me a little while just to find a tap and a die for when we made these. I do believe Maybaws have them. If they're not as bad as this one, a guy can have a machinist bore it out and sleeve it or something. They're not terribly complicated. What we did was cut this out and then just took some hex shaft, bored it, and tapped it out to the right threads and welded it into place. And I say we, I actually mean my good friend Jim. He did all the work. Yep, I'm going to use a crescent wrench. Avert your eyes. Two of them. Just want to get this jam nut loose. Maybe I'll put it in the vise. There we go. I'll make sure that jam nut's tightened up good. So they get loose, it just starts hammering away at those threads, and you don't want to know how much. Last I knew you could get this rod, but it was ridiculously expensive. Did a little initial cleanup on these cylinders just to get the bulk of the grease and dirt off. Took the hoses off. I'll clean all the parts again before it goes back together. But there's a elbow that goes in here, but that has to spin out because, as you can see, the head of the piston or the cylinder assembly is there, and so it can't come out until that spun out. Then we gotta get these screws out, Fortunately, it comes with new ones. They're Phillips head, and I gotta grab a screwdriver. Actually, we have to knock it back in a little farther in order to get the snap ring out. Of course, there was a hammer here. So we drive this in a little bit. That wasn't hard at all. And I want to screw an end back on here so I can got something I can do that with. Now this head could come off either end. It might be better to put it back on the other end just because there's no threads to chew on the seal. But going apart, we don't care. There is a notch in here that you can put a 9/16 fit there. Look at that. 9/16 end wrench fit there to hold it from turning. I'll hit this with the impact. I do believe that's a 3/4 inch. I don't know. They liked odd sizes on these Clark axles. Get this piston off, and then we can pick seals out, clean everything up, put her back together. Well, I'm glad I saw this before I started spinning that nut off. Looks like the rod hit the bottom of the barrel and squished it. The threads are kind of distorted. That hole is squished down. So I bet that would have been a fight the whole way off. It's set up to have a castle nut. It's got a lock nut now. And we'll just go with the lock nut when we go back together, but I am going to cut it off just above the lock nut because otherwise I don't need to mess up the threads or ruin this rod. So we'll do that. There we go. Thinking there was a seal on the inside, but apparently not. Lip type seal for dirt scraper. And then I do believe it's just an O-ring in there to maybe with a backup washer to seal the rod. Looks like just an O-ring. That can be cleaned up. Seals on the piston. This will pretty much ruin them. That's all right. They're the old ones. Yeah, so I thought there is an O-ring underneath that backs up the Teflon one that's on the outside, gives it springiness. And the other one. Ooh, got them both in one stab and broke them both. All right, time for some parts cleaning. I like to give a light filing to the inside here. Sometimes where that snap ring goes, years of just little movements can kind of push up a burr that can catch the seals as you put them in and mess things up. It looked like there's just a little bit of one there. Little sanding just to make sure there ain't any rough spots. Once again, anything that seal can get caught on, it can cut it and cause it to leak. I'll rinse that out one more time, blow it out, we can start going back together. So when I clean this up, I found there was a flat backup washer in there with the rod seal O-ring. I thought film was already rolling, and it wasn't. So I got the flat backup washer in there first. It goes away from the pressure. The pressure's on this end here, away from the dirt seal. So we want to get the O-ring inside of that. So the O-ring is towards the pressure. Everything's a shade of black, so I'm sure it's just showing up great on your screen. Part of it over here is above the washer, and another part is below, so we'll fix that. Trying to keep my fingers out of the way and trying to record, and well, they just don't always combine. Dirt wiper is in. Now let's get the seals on the piston while we're right here doing these kind of things. There's one O-ring. These are the skinny mini O-rings. Then the Teflon rings go over the O-rings. And I twisted it. Well, biscuits. Now I gotta untwist it without hurting it. Definitely sticking out more than the old one did. Let's try this one now. Hopefully without twisting it like I did before. There, I think that's good. I don't see any twist. This fat O-ring goes on the head here to seal that to the body, the barrel. I do believe all the seals are in place. We just need to get her back together. This one goes on here. I said there. Oh yeah. I think I want to slide the head on from the bottom end, just because the threads on the bottom end are smaller and are going to miss the seals. Make it go on a little easier. Let's see, I can put that washer on afterwards. So then we want the piston, the cutout recessed end goes in like that so it overlaps the rod. Flat washer, lock nut. If you happen to have a castle nut, you tighten her down and then put the cotter pin through. All right, let's see if I can get those Teflon seals to squeeze down all right. Come on. I don't think I have a ring compressor quite this small. Using this O-ring pick to kind of help squeeze the Teflon seal down into the barrel so it doesn't get sliced. Oops. We don't need that. Just a little thumb pressure down. The first one was a little easier because I could go a little crooked with that, but this one has to go a little straighter because the piston started. Okay, got them in. Now I gotta watch because it can pucker when it goes through that hole right there. but it doesn't slice it off that spot. So far, so good there. Oop. Wow. That O-ring popped in all right. Same thing there. Keep an eye on it, make sure. I guess now that I think about it, probably ought to keep this hole clocked right. But yeah, that went in okay. And you just got to push it in a little extra far so you can get the new snap ring in. There. That seats that. Put that on there. The old ones were Phillips head, and these are flathead. Now this ain't my rubber tipped. Some not hearing any air leaking by. If I had the rubber tipped one, I suppose I could go grab it. But I think she's pretty good. So now we've got, I know I did something with them. Here's one of the new spherical bushings, bearings. There, I like that. Did I say socket? I meant Craftsman driver tool. There's one cylinder down. I've just got plugs in it for now. I will probably mount it on the axle before paint, but I'm not going to put the hoses on until after paint. I think stuff like that kind of adds nice little touches to the restoration. Working on this second cylinder, and boy, it was kind of a rough things weren't wanting to go together the best. That Teflon ring was wanting to poke out, and of course now that I got it part in there, that Teflon ring is in the snap ring groove and doesn't want to pull out without probably damaging it. But just want to say, don't be afraid to clean up that edge. That's what I did, was took a file and smoothed up the chamfer. All that outer part does, anything past the snap ring, that chamfer is just to help get that stuff in. So I did a little file and a little sanding, cleaned it up, and boy, the ring just squeezed in there. Now I'll do the next one. Just make sure I'm getting it all the way around. But it's there. That one much better. Give her a little tap. Yeah, no bits of Teflon sticking around there. Yeah, this chamfer right in here just kind of had a ledge at the very bottom, a bit of a dip in the middle, some filing and sanding to give it a nice smooth approach. Really made all the difference. A little extra work, but sure beats having to buy another seal kit because he tore up this one. There we go, cylinder number 2 all back together. New bushings in the end. One's just not a press fit, but it's tight. It's either that or try to burn or grind off weld, and I think I'm going to live with that. Keep them greased up. There's a good reason to. This outer one was good and tight. I'd say it had been replaced at some point. Obviously a new bushing, spherical bearing there, but yeah, I had to put it in with the press. All right, that project is done. Appreciate everybody watching. We will see you in the next one.